Before we get started today, let me put a plug in on something that's going to be happening at our church on November the 12th at 7 p.m. We are having our Wild Game Dinner. It's an annual event that we have, and if you live in this area, you won't want to miss it. I tell you, we've got some of the best cooks in the area. Matter of fact, two of our ladies that will be doing some of the cooking work for Chamberlain's. They cook over there. And if you are familiar with Curtis, you know what Chamberlain's is. So let me just remind you that Saturday, November the 12th at 7 p.m. It's all free, plenty of good food. There's also some that's not gamey, like we'll have a pot roast and some things like that. But also, we give out door prizes and everything. And like I say, it's all free. So you won't want to miss it. If you're anywhere close to Curtis on November the 12th at 7 o'clock, you need to come by the church and enjoy the meal. So and mark your calendars, November the 12th, 7 p.m. Well, good morning. And as always, remember, this is the day the Lord's made. We'll rejoice and be glad in it. I've entitled today's sermon, Great Expectations. And it's taken from Proverbs chapter 13, verse 12, which says, "Hope deferred makes a heart sick, but when the desire comes, it's a tree of life." Now let me ask you, are you feeling down because of unfulfilled hopes and dreams? Let me also say this, it's difficult not to be with our current administration in office, or the shape that our country is in. I'll put it that way. But I'm not going to go political on you today. William Shakespeare wrote, expectations or expectation is the root of all heartache. And that's been true in my life to a certain degree. I'll share that with you a little more in just a moment. But let me ask you, are expectations all bad? Maybe. It depends upon what they're based, or where they're based. What brings about that expectation? Dr. Steve Marable said expectations is an unhealthy attachment to people, things, and outcomes we wish we could control, but don't. I had a lot of hopes and dreams as a young man. One thing was, it was my dream, and I worked diligently toward that dream, to retire as a millionaire. Now, that was in the value of the dollar back in 1970. Okay? But I wanted to do that before I was at the age of 50. You see, I had it in my mind that I would not live beyond the age of 50. I think I only had one uncle on my dad's side of the family that lived beyond the age of 50. My dad died when he was 48. And it wasn't any one thing. They all died of just various things. Well, here I am, 76, and still working. However, let me say this. I did retire at the age of 35, you might say. You see, I believe the description of retirement is doing what you like to do when you want to do it. And if that's the case, I've been doing that for over 40 years. You see, when I really gave my heart and life to Jesus Christ and to serve Him in the ministry at the age of 35, from that point on, I have done what I like to do when I want to do it. Now, let me say this: unmet expectations are bad. Don't don't sell that short. Unmet expectations in your job can lead to bitterness, depression, which can affect your performance and ruin your future opportunities. And, you know, along with that, maybe even more so, unmet expectations in marriage can cause frustration, it can fuel anger, it can kill your love, and ruin your relationship with your spouse. And yet I see that over and over and over, especially in our society today. People have all these expectations of the way their spouse is supposed to be or the way they're supposed to treat them, and they don't happen, so they become disgruntled and leave. You know, in premarital counseling, which, by the way, in almost every case, before I perform a wedding, especially if it's a young couple and this is their first time to be married, I have them to go through premarital counseling. Now, then, not too long ago, there was a couple, and both of them had been married before. And when I told them they needed to go through premarital counseling, they said, "Why? We've already been married before." I said, "Well, apparently it didn't work." So, premarital counseling. And during premarital counseling, I always ask the individuals what they expect from their marriage partner. You know, then after they give me the standard answers, you know what the standard answers are. She says, "Well, I want him to love me and to take care of me." And of course he says, "I want her to clean and to cook and to, you know, do the housework and all this stuff." Then I tell them the true fact about marriage. I've got a good friend. I'm not going to mention who he is, but if you watch this, if he's watching this, he'll know who I'm talking about. He always made this statement. He said, one day we were talking about buying a new dishwasher. He said, "You don't buy a dishwasher, you marry them." I think he's had about 5 different dishwashers. But anyway, I won't go any further. But you need to understand the true fact concerning marriage is simply don't have expectations. You see, expectations in marriage, in regard to your marriage partner, are selfish. You need to understand love is not a 50-50 proposition like most people think. It's not a give and take proposition. Well, if you do this for me, I'll do this for you. It doesn't work that way. You say, "Well, how do you know?" Well, I've been married 57 years. Is that good enough? Listen, love is not a give and take. It's not a 50-50 proposition. It's a 100% commitment to your partner. In other words, you give to them because you love them. You don't expect necessarily anything from them. That way, when you do get it, it is nice. You enjoy it. And that's what brings that bond together. If Jane is trying to please me with all of her ability and all her might, and I'm trying to please her with all my ability and all my might, guess what? We're going to get along great. And for the most part, we pretty well do. I jokingly say, well, I give her 100% and she takes 100%. But that's not the case. That's joking. Now then, we need to look at something this morning concerning expectations, and that is how to conquer unmet expectations. It doesn't do a bit of good for me to talk about unmet expectations and how they're bad for you and all this other stuff if I can't give you the cure. If I can't, This is one of the things that aggravates me about reporters today. They report what's going on, but they don't give you any way of making it right. If they did, I probably wouldn't believe them anyway. Listen, sometimes we need to understand how to conquer unmet expectations. And there's something that I've learned, and that is that I'm not in control. God is. And the quicker you learn that, the quicker you're on the road to conquering unmet expectations. Let me say this. I told you I was going to share more about my life. I was miserable because none of my dreams and plans were coming about. I mean, I was working hard. I was making a lot of money. But I was miserable. I should have been happy. I was on the fire department and making good money as a professional fireman, working 24 hours on, 48 hours off, which left me 21 days a month to operate a business. And I owned and operated a mapping company, which also did engineering work and stuff like that. But I was a workaholic. I was on that treadmill that most people are on and don't even realize it. You get up, you go to work, you come home, you eat supper, you rest, you go to sleep, you get up, you go to work, just a treadmill. And I was miserable. But then I placed my hope in God's will. That made all the difference in the world. You see, my prayer now is like Jesus' prayer, where he said there in the garden, he told the Father, not my will, but your will be done. Now, I don't make a whole lot of plans. If I do, I always end that plan with, Lord, if it be your will. That's the number one thing. I want his will to be done. I realize now all the things that I thought were so important didn't amount to a hill of beans. Having a lot of money didn't amount to a hill of beans. You say, well, wait a minute, that does. No, it doesn't. God has taken care of Jane and myself for over 40 years. He's even worked miracles to take care of us. You see, in 1981, I gave my all, that's every part of me, to Jesus Christ and his ministry. Now, I became a Christian in 1976 at the age of 30. I've already told you I'm 76. But at age of 35, in 1981, I gave myself completely to him. Wherever he wanted me to go, whatever he wanted me to do, whoever he wanted me to talk to, that's what I wanted to do. And let me tell you something. I'm thankful for every failure, for every closed door that came my way. Sometimes I felt like I got my nose slammed in the door. But that's okay. I'm thankful for it. You see, if I had continued to strive for all the worldly things that I was striving for, I'd be miserably dead now. Now, Jane told me I shouldn't use that terminology, miserably dead. Well, let me tell you something. If I would have kept going the way that I was going, I was going to be terribly miserable and probably be dead now because of it. So I don't know how to describe it other than being miserably dead. Now, if you can think of a better way to describe it, let me know. But listen, I'm serious. Now I see that God's plan was perfect for me. By the way, I have lived in two of the most beautiful places in the world, right here in the United States. I lived in southwest Colorado where the majestic mountains are just beautiful. And this time of year, it is magnificent, just like it is here in the UP. The second place where I've lived is so pretty is right here in the UP. All 4 seasons are pretty. Now, early spring is not so pretty. But it is really, really beautiful here. You see, I've learned the secret to commitment is believing and trusting in God to give the strength we need and not what we expect. He's promised to supply our needs, not to supply our dreams, not to supply our hopes, not to supply our wants, but to supply our needs. Now, I'm going to share this little story with you. My mom, when she was 82, I believe it was, decided that she could no longer take care of herself. And she needed to check herself into a nursing home. Now, my mom knew all about nursing homes. You see, my mom retired as a nurse. So she knew about nursing homes. And the doctor that she worked for built this nursing home for him to live in when it came that time that he needed help. And he was living in that nursing home. So you know it was a nice one. It was in Wills Point, Texas. Well, she moved into the nursing home. Well, when I went to visit her one day, I asked her how she liked it. She said, the home is nice. The only thing that really bothers me is I had to turn all of my savings, my retirement, everything over to them. Everything that I had of value, I had to turn over to them. And I said, well, Mom, don't they take good care of you? Well, yeah. Don't they give you some money to spend? Well, yeah. I said, well, what are you lacking? What is it that you want that you're not getting? She looked at me and said, nothing. I have everything that I want. You see, my mom was listening to the wrong voice at that particular point. And it just took her adjusting her way of thinking, because the home was taking excellent care of her. Sure, she didn't have any money as far as income, but she didn't need it. You know, let me ask you, those of you who have children, young children, dependent children, if they're living at home with you and you're taking care of, do they need to get a job so that they can have income? Not if you're taking care of them. And that's kind of the way we are. Only difference is we want to be the boss. We want to be independent. We don't want someone else taking care of us. Well, let me tell you something. I learned a long time ago. I'd a whole lot rather God be taking care of me than Ray being taking care of me. You see, Ray is limited in his resources. God's not. Now, the Apostle Paul realized this. And he said, I know how to be abased, and I know how to abound. Let me tell you, same with me. He goes on and says, everywhere and in all things. I've learned both to be full and to be hungry, both to abound and to suffer need. Listen to what he says next. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That's Philippians chapter 4, verses 12 and 13. We like to quote that last part. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. But we need to put it with, or preface it with, what Paul did. I've learned both to be full and to be hungry, to abound and to suffer need. In other words, whatever comes my way, I'm not going to worry about it. God is going to take care of me. My expectations are only in Him. Now let me ask you, are you depressed because of an unhealthy expectation? Or maybe unhealthy expectations. Maybe you have more than one that you shouldn't even be thinking. If so, if that's the case, you should kill them before they kill you. Speaking from experience. Then put your trust in God's will and not your own will. Put your trust in God taking care of you instead of you doing it. Take it from me. You'll be a lot happier. And let me tell you, a happy life is a long life. I want you to think about it. Give me a call. My information is going to follow. Jot me a line. Shoot me an email. Let me know what you think. Maybe even let me know some of your experiences. Well, until next time, God bless. Amen.